today's topic is aromatherapy for blending enthusiasm for life. So aromatherapy and blending enthusiasm for life. Why this topic? And I will throw in aphrodisiacs as well. The reason how this came about is my students from my my higher education. I was asking them, what do you want me to teach you about? And they said at these challenging times, a lot of people have lost enthusiasm for life, and also a lot of people have lost also their sensuality and would like to have that accented as well. So I thought this would be quite a nice challenge for me to address from my specific point of view of aromatherapy. So let's try and figure it out. And what I did first was to get clear on my definitions. What is enthusiasm and what are aphrodisiacs, so that I am sure that I'm talking about the right stuff. So here are some definitions, and at the bottom here you will see which dictionary I got that from. So definition of enthusiasm that I found and I wrote here for you is strong excitement or feeling, something inspiring zeal or fervor, belief in special revelations of the Holy Spirit, which I found very interesting, and even religious fanaticism. So there you go. That's kind of what's defined for being enthusiasm. What can we do with essential oils to embrace that? I was very curious. And then for aphrodisiac, it's an agent, in this case, an essential oil that arouses or is held to arouse sexual desire. So that's also very interesting. And so just to be clear on what arousal is, I looked at those definitions. That means to awaken from sleep, very, very interesting definition, to stimulate to action or to bodily readiness for activity, so any activity, to excite someone sexually. So these are some things where I can start to even search for answers how to apply aromatherapy for enthusiasm for life. And then on an even harder thing, what is life? You know, this is such a personal question. So then if I'm going to answer how to use essential oils to bring more enthusiasm to life, I really need to be clear on what life is on many different perspectives. So not just mine, each one of us has our own perspective. So I looked up that one, and that one is quite a long list. And I'm sure many of you have different definitions of life, but these are some that I found I could work with. So for example, the quality that distinguishes a vital and functional being from a dead body. Well, definitely life is something that's not dead. A principle or force that is considered to underlie the distinctive quality of animate beings. The sequence of physical and mental experiences that make up the existence of an individual. I found that one interesting because it's mentioning sequence, which could be also used in aromatherapy. A way or manner of living, a vital or living being, the form or pattern of something existing in reality, painted from life, the activities of a given sphere, area, or time, one providing interest and vigor, an opportunity for continued viability. So here I found viability an interesting word, so I looked that one up so I know what I'm talking about. It's the ability to live, grow, and develop. So these are just some of the explanations I found on the dictionary. I'm sure we all feel that life is far greater than that, but this is what I had to work with. This is where I started. So let's try and see how to apply this then in aromatherapy in our daily lives. So where do we even begin? So what is your style of choosing an essential oil? So what does efficient essential oil choosing mean for you? Do you choose intuitively? Do you choose essential oils because they smell nice? Do you choose it by what you feel is the most efficient essential oil, by safety? Maybe perhaps if you have some products or marketing requirements, or you just live in an area like we just heard and you would like to use your local essential oil. So where do you begin? by choosing your essential oil. And then the next thing that comes to mind is, what does choosing efficiently mean? What does it mean for you? In my viewpoint, I always look at properties of essential oils, which we can find in scientific research, for example, and then application, which can be wildly different from scientific research. And then I compare science and experience. I will take a look at that, how wildly different that can actually be. And then, of course, always consider safety and dosage. These are interconnected a lot of times. Some oils may not be safe to use at a high dosage, whereas if you put them at a lower one, can do wonders for you. So these are things I personally feel makes a big difference in choosing an oil that is most efficient for you, even if it goes for something like an aphrodisiac or enthusiasm for life, maybe even more so because it's so intimate. So let's see what's happening next. So here I will show you what does choosing efficient essential oil mean, and I will switch a little bit to Dropsmith and back to prove my point. And first I would like to address science and experience. A lot of, some of my colleagues, and when I teach in for pharmacists and in medical profession, they really prefer scientific research, which we have more and more in aromatherapy and especially essential oils. There's more research, which is great, but it's often very limited to antimicrobial effect, antioxidant, anti-inflammatory, and that's pretty much where it ends for most essential oils. If we look at how this affects our feelings and mind, and then spirituality, how do we even test that? Some things we will find in research is antidepressant action, anxiolytic action, sedative action. So these are the most tested. And then also you can find some scientific studies on safety of essential oils that is covered. But what about everything else? You know, so then we turn to experience, or you go from experience to science, whatever path you choose. But in my personal opinion, you should look at everything possible that's available to you and then make up your own choice. So when we look at experience, you have the traditional use, not only traditional use of essential oils, but you can go beyond that and see how that plant was used throughout history, and how does that reflect and is or isn't the same as the essential oil. Saying that essential oil is different than the plant itself, because it went through the process of distillation, and that can change its molecules and its, you know, just its dynamics in general. So then we look at practical experience, and we have tons of case studies and anecdotes in aromatherapy, which, especially anecdotes, my scientific friends don't appreciate so much. But personally, I found them very valuable. A lot of nurses, for example, that I work with in palliative care, they keep on getting similar results. So I do believe that there's a lot of quality information there. And then by collecting these, we can have more and more idea what to test in the scientific world. For example, what can be, has some rationale to be pursued and tested in the first place. And then again, we broaden that by looking at practices that use essential oils or aromatherapy in their tradition, like Ayurveda or Chinese medicine, herbalism. They have been using essential oils for perhaps far longer than aromatherapy as the name exists. So these are all questions that I have come across in my career, and had this wish to bring together so that we can compare and see what has shown to work, and where do we have the loopholes, and what can we build to make a bridge between all of these areas and bring it together in a new shiny light. So let me show you when is this useful. So I will compare a few oils that have been mentioned as aphrodisiacs in aromatherapy books and journals, And then let's look at how to go about in this way. So let's write aphrodisiac. I hope I know how to spell it right. Oh, no, I don't. Here we go. Thank God for copy paste. So here we have, like you see in the database, we have quite some oils that have been mentioned as aphrodisiacs. But if we look, these colors, they represent chemical families. I like to compare that as well. And now we'll come to that further in the lesson, how that comes into play and can help you make even better choices. So as you see, they're quite wildly different. So let's choose a few and then compare them. For example, we can choose clary sage, and then it's very different from sandalwood. Maybe ylang ylang is a classic aphrodisiac. I don't know about you, but this one works for me. And patchouli, so this is my combination. Patchouli. Okay, so let's take a look at it. So why compare oils? Then you get more insight. So right away you will see, oh, although these oils are different, you will see that they are in the same functional groups. See, these ones do cover the same groups. So this may or may not be something to look at. I will look into this further. But then we compare, and I will just search for aphrodisiacs again. If we can have a little bit more information about it. So, for example, with which one is this? Clary sage. We have that it's known to have seductive and aphrodisiac activity. Very interesting. And then sandalwood promotes sexuality, for example. It's a little bit different if you look at what would seductive mean as opposed to promote sexuality. It kind of triggers different things. And then ylang ylang creates erotic desire. That's an interesting one. Are you taking notes? And then for patchouli can reincline desire. So this is what I'm trying to say. It's nice to have more and more information, although these have all been recommended as an aphrodisiac. How to be applied, it's nice to know the difference. So just to show you some options on how to go about that. And then if I scroll further and compare other things, you will see that I'm sure they all work very well. See, on relaxation. So this goes again to have the aphrodisiac come to an effect. Logically, you need to relax. It works on sensuality here with sandalwood and ylang ylang. Sleep. So for example, me personally, ylang ylang makes me go to sleep. It doesn't do much more than that for me. Stress, logical, you need to reduce stress to be open for any sort of communication. So next thing I would go to is look for safety. So how will you then apply this, or will you use it in air? Will you do a massage oil? If you do the massage oil, for example, ylang ylang, it's not recommended to have more, not even 1%. So this is the good news. You can use it in a bath or whatever. So here I'm already narrowing down on how I will apply this. So let's come back to more juicy stuff. So this is what I created for you. Some oils that I looked up as aphrodisiacs in the database. And as you can see, they're quite different. We have bitter orange, which is different than cardamom. And then cinnamon, of course, has very different safety recommendation than cardamom, for example. Clary sage, we saw that one. So just quite an interesting list of essential oils that different authors, different aromatherapists found as aphrodisiacs. And then I looked at some different categories like intimacy, sexuality, sensuality, increases energy, rigidity. So then you can see, although these are aphrodisiacs, what else have they been found to trigger? So as you can see, some of these are more focused on the intimacy, whereas these ones here in this row really directly affect sexuality. And these are sensuality. There is a difference. between sexuality and sensuality, obviously. And if you look at rose, interestingly, I haven't found that it's been quoted as an aphrodisiac, but it has been recommended for intimacy, for sexuality, and sensuality. So I would suggest that it's actually a really good aphrodisiac and for beauty. So, but you kind of understand the different characteristic, different kind of energy essential oils bring to what seems to be the same equation. And then depending on what you would like to point out on where would you like to go, knowing more information how this works can help you create a better product. I hope you're enjoying it so far. So what's next? How can compounds affect our choices? So we go the next layer. So first I compared this stuff here. So science and experience. So you see in this area with aphrodisiacs, it's very hard to find some scientific research that actually is an aphrodisiac. So we started from experience. But then the next thing we do, as in sometimes we are not having enough information on the essential oils, like we have here this beautiful magnolia leaf essential oil, and I will show you in the database. But we have so little information about it. We can then go to the chemical components, which are quite often repeated, not in all oils, but most, and they are quite well researched, the ones that are frequently show up in our essential oils. So let me show you magnolia leaf, and I will go back to the catalog. Here it is. And the reason I chose this oil is because of few things. So first of all, it is recommended for sensuality and relaxation and these things we're talking about today. But it has zero properties we found in scientific research, and also very little information in books and aromatherapy journals so far that I can quote for application. But if you look at the chemistry of the essential oil, it has over 70, almost 75% of linalool. And linalool is very well researched. And what does that do for the oil? It gives me much more variety, much more confidence in why I choose this oil for a certain thing. You might have it in your cupboard or in your office, and you would really love to use it on a client, but you do need that extra support from scientific research to back up your choice, either just to the client, or perhaps you have some superiors that you need to explain why. And that's when your chemical components of the essential oil can really help you with your choices. Not only that, but look here, if we look at the properties of, here we calculate the properties of the chemical components. So all these chemical components in this beautiful magnolia leaf essential oils with the arrow have certain properties. So on the right here, what we do is we calculate them for you. So here you go, we have over 90% of the chemical components in magnolia, this particular one, that are antibacterial, anti-inflammatory, antifungal, analgesic, antiseptic. So you have so much more to work with. So this is why you should pay attention to the chemical components in your essential oils. And this also, the safety pretty much always is directly connected to the chemical compounds. So as you see, this one is quite safe because linalool is also quite a safe component. So I hope this is making sense so far. I am taking you on the journey with this. Of course, not all essential oils are as singular as this one. So here we have, let me just come back to alcohols. We have a very, very dominant component, so we can draw some conclusions with quite some certainty and rationale. But sometimes you have, of course, oils that are that don't have one or two chemical components that are so dominant that you can use that as your rationale for your superiors, for example. So when is this useful? Well, I just I just showed you. We can do this on another example if we have time, but I would like to get to more practical stuff. So what I did was I compared a lot of these oils. I actually compared all of them. It took me quite some time, but I did, and compared their chemical composition in search for the dominant chemical components. And what I found is that these ones repeat themselves, but rarely in a significant percentage like we just saw with magnolia leaf. They come in about, I don't know, from 1 to 30%. So interestingly, pretty much all of these oils have a very beautiful synergy of a mixture of chemical components with nothing too much dominating. And then you have some oils such as patchouli with very unique compounds, or alpha and beta santalol in sandalwood, or like this one is in rose. And then we have jasmine, an interesting ketone in jasmine. So what I found is that aphrodisiacs are very complex. It's hard to put your finger on them. And that is logical because they have to do a lot of things for you to work. So I will come to that point. Although I was looking for something I can give to my students a bit more clear, okay, so this chemical component can really help your blend. Of what I came to a conclusion is that they're very well balanced, which is even more logical. So let's take a look at some of these chemical components that I found that they do repeat themselves in most of these aphrodisiacs. So I took some of them, and these colors here, they align with jasmine. So these are monoterpenes, these are monoterpene alcohols, these are esters, and this is a ketone, just in case that tells you something. These chemical components here have all been found scientifically based to have antidepressant properties, and then these ones have anxiolytic. And with geraniol, I wrote no, because sometimes we just don't have research at all. It hasn't been done. So you're not sure if this oil hasn't been labeled as antidepressant because it hasn't been tested, or a chemical component, or because it actually is not an antidepressant. So with the geraniol, what happened was it was tested for anxiolytic properties, but it has been found that actually it was not. So I thought that was very interesting. And also it is not a sedative. And I found that very interesting because you will find it in some oils that then have these properties, and it's usually because it comes in a combination with different chemical compounds that are sedative or anxiolytic. And geraniol, for example, is largely in geranium, and even more so in palmarosa oil. So notice how these two are very different than, for example, lavender or neroli, that do have also monoterpene alcohols like linalool and citronellol, but not as much geraniol. So these are the details that I like to look into if we look at oils that are rich in some typical monoterpene alcohols, but which one and how does that then play a dynamic in working on our feel-good properties, such as antidepressant, anxiolytic. Then I found some of these also have the hypotensive effect, meaning they lower blood pressure, and sedative, which is very interesting for me. How does that play a role in our aphrodisiacs? And I will come to enthusiasm for life. Bear with me. So what this then reminded me of was that many, many years ago, when I studied a little bit perfumery, and creating natural perfumes and perfumes in general are very often linked to creating aphrodisiacs, because, you know, if something makes you feel good, if something is an aphrodisiac, it will make you feel good as well, not just attract somebody else. So I prepared for you how I was taught to create an aphrodisiac. And then it makes sense, much more sense, about the whole chemistry of these oils that have been recommended as aphrodisiacs. So the first effect, and they do come in order, the first effect you would like to create when you create a natural or an aphrodisiac in general would need to be the anti-erogenous effect. So you're not going straight for the win. You're first pretending you're not interested at all. So what does this mean? This means that you first should smell the anti-erogenous note, which are usually the monoterpene. Citruses are great for this, for example. And it arouses interest and makes us more open for the next step, which is narcotic ingredients. So, for example, you might want to use a lemon essential oil or an orange, which does not necessarily act as an aphrodisiac, but what it does, and you will see this is because of the large content on limonene also, it has this antidepressant effect. It relaxes you, but it does not make you sleepy. So this is why citruses are good to start with. It does not have that erogenous effect on you, but it relaxes you, makes you feel good, it makes you feel happy. So it's a great entrance. And of course, citruses have, as they're largely monoterpenes, they will evaporate first, and so you will smell this first. So the next thing you would like to do is have the narcotic and calming effect. So once you relaxing, once you're interested, then you would like to relax. So the narcotic odor may increase awareness and sensitivity to erotic stimuli. So once you're so relaxed, now your senses need to be awakened. Okay, so what do you do then? For the third step, then you can use the essential oils and that stimulate receptivity of the senses. So here with the narcotic effect, I would just like to come back. I found that jasmine works very well to do that. I don't know if you noticed, but if you use jasmine, it kind of makes you ooh. And what it does is also, in my experience, it really heightens the senses. So whether your goal is to make an aphrodisiac or just having heightened senses in general, as in paying more attention to something, jasmine is very good. I also read some researchers when they use jasmine in air to have their workers be more focused. So it does a kind of, science does confirm my experience where the senses are heightened. And when that happens, it also heightens your focus. So you can also possibly use oils that what they do is when they bring you back together to your center, such as, I don't know, for me, it's cedarwood that brings me back to my senses. Then, of course, as your mind clears and you're more focused, you can be more aware of your senses as well. So this might be another way of reaching that narcotic effect when you come back to yourself now here. And we have oils that can help you do that. So when you're here, nice and calm, now is the time to stimulate your senses. So this is why I was surprised that oils such as peppermint, for example, or rosemary were not mentioned as aphrodisiacs. I didn't find them anywhere. Whereas, for example, I don't know if you know, but rosemary has been traditionally used as the symbol of everlasting love. So I was surprised not to find it. And so rosemary and, for example, peppermint, they do stimulate the senses. So this might be the moment to include them. And then, of course, all of that leads finally to the erogenous effect. And here you can then use oils that have actually been recommended as aphrodisiacs. Once I read through all of this and reminded myself of how to create a natural aphrodisiac, it makes so much sense. Because if we go back to, and let me just copy paste so that I spell it right. If we go back to oils that are mentioned as aphrodisiacs, you will find that a lot of them do cover, let me just put more of them so you see them on the screen. A lot of what we mentioned, you know, relaxing, stimulating the senses with ginger, for example, and cinnamon. Well, I don't know, I wouldn't really use cinnamon in a massage oil, but you might use it in the air. It does pretty much all of this. It has, well, except the first one, it relaxes you, it stimulates your senses. It is known as an aphrodisiac. The same with ylang ylang, for example. It does, the oil itself already contains most of these effects. So then it starts making sense why, if we look at chemistry and essential oils that have been known as aphrodisiacs, that have been recommended as aphrodisiacs, why are they so complex? Why are they so versatile? Why do not have a single component sticking out? Because they need to be nice and rounded and, sorry, skipping here, and take you through this whole palette of effects gently and in a certain order. So naturally, they can't have just one thing, you know, sticking right at you. So if you take a look at them, they're really, really interesting palette of essential oils that have been recommended as aphrodisiacs. Seemingly different. So if you take a look at them at the beginning, you're like, what's happening? How will I find a connection here? But the connection is in the variety. It's beautiful how it works. So then after I did all of that research and went backwards from aphrodisiacs, now I can come back to enthusiasm for life. So let me just come back to some definitions. And definition for enthusiasm, if we remember, is strong excitement or feeling. So definitely going through this, and essential oils that we mentioned earlier here, they do provoke or help you have a more strong experience of feelings. It's something inspiring. Well, essential oils for me personally are always inspiring. But if you have an oil or a blend that will take you through this, you will definitely be inspired at the end of it. There's no need for you to use it then as an aphrodisiac. But I often use oils that are aphrodisiacs or blends that could be taken as aphrodisiacs. I use them for work because I would like to be inspired. I would like to be more creative, and I use jasmine, for example, quite often when I have lectures because it makes me feel good, it makes me feel more connected, it inspires me, and it wakes me up. So a good aphrodisiac can actually help you for many things in your work, and you'll be more appealing as well to yourself, not just other people. So definition of life, if I come back to just a few, which can, of course, never be enough to define what life really is, but let's work with what we have. The quality that distinguishes a vital and a functional being from a dead body. Well, if you happen to inspire a person through this process and, you know, have them excited about something at the end of your blend, you're definitely different from a dead body, which you might have had at the beginning of the process, you know, coming back from work or stress or whatever. You might feel quite dead, but you're still living. So, and next thing, a principle or force that is considered to underline the distinctive quality of animate beings. So essential oils definitely are a force that will bring more quality to you, especially if you use them in a smart way like this to then help you achieve more inspiration, more excitement. So that's why I thought that this lecture would be useful for everybody. You not necessarily need to make aphrodisiacs to, or, use it in the classical sense, but really what I would like to give you is how to use these wonderful oils to bring you more excitement, more inspiring, more relaxing life. And then I like the thing, sequence of physical and mental experiences that make up the existence of an individual. And coming back to that sentence might have not made sense for me at the beginning, but after I saw this is a sequence of physical and mental experiences that then will make up a certain effect at the end. So I thought that one fit quite nicely with what we actually came to after all my research. So a vital or living being, after being so inspired and excited, you are definitely vital or living and living, a being you're always. And one providing interest and vigor. So I think that by creating a great aphrodisiac, you have actually managed to nail it for enthusiasm for life as well. So that's why I went from aphrodisiac to enthusiasm, because it was something easier to grasp on. If you look through research or through how people use essential oils for enthusiasm, you will not get very far. You will not get that information. And that is why I always start by getting clear on what my definition is and how can that give me different viewpoints of the same thing. And as you see, aphrodisiacs can be used for many wonderful purposes. And coming back to chemical components, I did actually find one single chemical component that has been tested as an aphrodisiac, and believe it or not, that one is camphor. So I just like to share that with you. And then what other things that this chemical component have that might be interesting, and that I can draw a parallel to oils that we found that are aphrodisiacs. Camphor stimulates receptors, the cold receptors in the nose, but nevertheless receptors. And something that's similar to a lot of the oils that have been recommended as an aphrodisiac is pain reliever and antihypotensive. So do you remember here we have the antihypotensive, and a lot of these chemical components are also great on pain. I didn't prepare a slide for you, but you can look it up in Dropsmiths very quickly, or just right here, pain, and it will pop up a large number of oils that do that as well. And then you can compare how does that go with the aphrodisiac story. But let's take a look at the essential oils. If you know a little bit about aromatherapy and essential oils, you will see that pretty much all of these work on pain, physical pain. So very interesting. If I look at other chemical components, and then you can through that see which other oils this affects, that are receptor stimulators, we have 1,8-cineol, we have camphor, and we have menthol. So menthol is very limited to different kinds of course, mints, and camphor does have a bit more opportunity there, but never in a big quantity, which is good because it has some neurotoxic effects as well if it's too much. But 1,8-cineol is in plenty of essential oils. So it would be interesting to see how many oils have actually 1,8-cineol and are aphrodisiacs as well. Or you might perhaps want to add to this equation a little bit of these more stimulating essential oils. So for example, you might use something like ylang-ylang, which is very sedative, but then add just a drop of peppermint to bring it back to stimulating notes and to stimulate your senses. But let me show you, just so you know, this chemistry can be confusing and overwhelming. But 1,8-cineol, if we look at how many oils we actually have, 1,8-cineol, you might be surprised. This is what I would like to show you. 1,8-cineol. So I'm going to search for oils that have over 1% of 1-HCl. And look at this. There's just so many, over 200 different oils that have over 1% of 1-HCl. You don't need it a lot. You just need it to, wake you up. And so much opportunity, so many options. I find it fascinating. Get to know your essential oil. So every essential oil is unique, as you saw here. Each one of these aphrodisiacs is a story for itself. So the more you know about how it works on anything, the more you will understand what to do with it. The better quality will be your end product. You will feel more secure and more confident. So get to know your essential oils. Everyone is unique and has its own story and purpose. The more you know and understand your essential oils, the more you will learn and appreciate their complexity, their value, and the mystery. So thank you for watching, and here's my contact if you have more questions.